Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's see if we can figure this out this time. Technical difficulties, as it feels like they're always are. Man, I tell you what. I don't know if it's just because I'm all out of sorts because of how crazy life has been, or if I'm just doomed. Julia says, remember to push the red button. Yeah, I got that. That's the only thing that I did right tonight. I don't take blame for this. It's just technical difficulties. I need to make sure to just always restart everything before I start, because for some reason the mixer does not always like to connect to the computer, and so it's silly. I should restart every time. It's my fault. It is my fault. I should do that. There's no phone lines tonight because my phone is also almost dead, so it's plugged in and charging. If it powers up, maybe I'll turn them on, but this is still an interactive show. This is a live show for anybody who is tuning in via the podcast. The point of this is to hang out live and hang out together and have a conversation. So you can do that via the chat, which a lot of you have already figured out. That pops up down here. Then it goes away and it'll come back. So the chat is probably the most fun way, in my opinion, to listen to the show, because we get to all kind of hang out and talk about things together. But it is also a podcast. So for those of you listening via podcast, we appreciate you too. It is also, I guess it's a lot of things. It's also a happy hour. It's an excuse for us all to hang out on a Monday night, have a drink together, and just talk about whatever we want to talk about, the same way you would with your friends if you're sitting at a bar over a couple drinks. It doesn't matter what you drink. We don't care. You can open up a sparkling water. You can have a beer. You can have a cocktail. Whatever makes you feel good. I'm going to drink a beer because that makes me feel good. And after the chaos of trying to get the show going, I think I need a beer. I was late getting the show going already. It's already after 10 o'clock, which is obviously not what we like from this show. But kids were nuts. Kid wouldn't go to sleep, so had to go deal with that. That's I guess that's life, you know. It's almost sometimes like he purposely does that on Mondays just to mess with me. He'll be ready to go to bed at like 6 p.m. on any other night, but Monday, if there's something going on, he'll stay awake for me. We've been busy, which is evidenced by the fact that there was no episode of Cincy Brewcast again this week. Apologies for that. I am recording 2 episodes this week, though, so I have plenty of episodes coming up. I just haven't been able to get anything done outside of family stuff and work, and that's it. I've not been able to squeeze anything else in. So we talked about last week, probably the week before. Also, we've been busy trying to get new fence up, and the new fence is up, and then we had what I call mount brush, just a ton of cut honeysuckle that we had to get removed and taken care of, because it was literally a mountain just in the middle of my backyard. This big giant mountain of brush. It was terrible. Let's see. Julia is finishing a bottle of Big Bad Baptist Naked Baptist. I assume she's finishing that because the show is 37 minutes late. Mount Brushmore. I didn't even think of that one. That's good. Elijah has now finished weeding his garden. The day was entirely too hot today. It was warm, but it was beautiful. It was I love a hot summer day. I ate lunch out at 50 West, and just the beer garden is perfect for summer days. I love summertime. I love drinking beer in summertime. Which we'll talk kind of about what I've been drinking lately, but what I'm drinking tonight, I'm kind of on theme with some of the stuff I want to talk about. I'm going to open up a lager. This is from Listermann, as you can see. This is called Dark Matter. It's their Schwarz beer. It is 5.5%, And it says, because there is a description on Listerman's beers, so you can't really see it with this lighting right up here. For a while, they didn't have any description, just the artwork. There is a description now. And it says, this is our dark lager made with German Pilsner and Munich malts, featuring notes of toasty chocolate and finishing with a subtle roast reminiscent of a light cold brew. Embrace the darkness. I have had one of these already, so I do know that it's delicious. Spoiler alert, it's good. Julia says, I love that one, especially the vampire squid on the label. Yeah, very real simple artwork, but it's awesome. We will get this poured into here. I did stop out at Listerman maybe a week ago or so to have a couple beers, see what was new out there. Nothing crazy to report. All right. Beautiful beer. Dark. You guys probably can't see. Maybe you can hear it a little bit at the bottom. There's a little bit of kind of a brown color coming through, but mostly this is dark. Super black. And yeah, like roasty, but that bitter kind of bitter chocolate. I get a ton on the nose. And then there's some kind of bready stuff going on there too. Maybe like a dark bread, when you go to Outback. I haven't been to Outback in a while. You get that little loaf of bread there. Whatever kind of bread that is what I'm smelling. Is it pumpernickel? I don't know. I do know that pumpernickel is fun to say. All right, let me dive in here. Let me see. Man, it's so good. I know that not everybody on the chat is a Schwarzbier fan. I am. Man, I love it. Love it. It is roasty, but it's still kind of smooth and just still goes down easy like a lager. But with all of that big roasty kind of bitter kind of flavors. Man, it reminds me of kind of when I first started drinking craft beer. And I know that probably a lot of people have similar stories where dark beer is the first thing that kind of shocks the palate and kind of shows you this other side of what beer can be. And I can still remember kind of getting into some of those big porters or stouts and fall in love with them. And of course, Guinness was in there. But then the first time I tried a dark lager like this, that mixture of the light kind of, I hate saying drinkability, but the light kind of drinkability of a lager, but then those big roasty dark flavors coming in and kind of almost confusing the palate a little bit, and just something completely unexpected. This takes me back to drinking beers like that at that time, but yeah, really enjoyable. It's definitely one that you can drink a lot of, and it's hard for me sometimes to dive into big dark beers. The Baptist that Julia is drinking, great beer, I'm sure. I've not had the Naked Baptist, but great beer. But it's not something that I am going to think about picking up and opening in the summertime. I've got plenty of them, and I probably should to get through some of them more. But I tend to just kind of go for the lighter stuff or the hoppier stuff or the more summery things. Julia says, I heard a worse term than drinkability the other day. Throatable. Yeah, I'm not going to start using throatable. I do know that Anheuser-Busch had a term that they called the share of throat that they used in a lot of their kind of behind-the-scenes marketing terms, because there was only so much things that people could be consuming, so they were always fighting for their share of throat. Throatable. No, I'm going to call it drinkability. Like it. This is probably something that I need to sit down and kind of really figure out in my head. But it's definitely a thing. The drinkability, the crushability. I know crushing things was a popular way to describe it for a while there, but it is something that is, I think, measurable. There are criteria that go into the drinkability of something, and so I think it's a valid. I think it's a valid descriptor, but it doesn't really say anything either. I should just use the criteria that make it drinkable. Whatever. I'm not gonna sit and dwell over it today, because we have things to talk about. We have some fun stuff to talk about, and feel free to chime in as we go. Marco doesn't want to dig in too deep on throatable. I think, well, is that somebody's nickname? All right, let's go. Let's just keep moving. Let's move past all of the throatability. I want to start with Kentucky. So the Kentucky currently has a barrel tax, and I probably should have pulled more extensive notes about this so that I could kind of dive in a little deeper with it. But this barrel tax basically means that a distillery in the state of Kentucky pays a tax every year based on how much spirit they have in barrels. So a big, massive distillery that has warehouses and warehouses full of barrels, they're paying for all of that every year. That tax money goes to the place where they are, so the local kind of area, the city or the town or whatever, the township. And in theory, that money is usually going to schools and fire departments and things like that. The argument from the localities is that when you have something like a distillery, especially a big distillery in town, you need increased things like the fire department to possibly save things when inevitably the distillery catches on fire, because that seems to be something that happens to every distillery at some point in their history. This barrel tax, though, is being eliminated. The state of Kentucky is realizing, or has been realizing, that they are starting to lose out to other states where maybe a distillery that's getting ready to start up decides to go somewhere else because taxes are better, and so they go to Tennessee or Virginia or wherever, and that's not okay to Kentucky. They take their bourbon especially very seriously, that it is their product and it should not be anywhere else. So the fact that other distilleries are going other places, they got to fix that. So they are getting rid of this barrel tax. The distilleries obviously like this idea, less taxes. That's a good thing. However, the localities, the smaller towns where some of these distilleries are located, it's a lot of money. I don't think I wrote down. No, I didn't write down what the actual number that is coming in every year, but it is clearly a lot. We're talking millions and millions, if not more than that, between all of these distilleries. And the localities are going to lose out on that. They are, however, going to start in like a phasing of removing it. They are going to, over the next, 20 years, I think it was, something like that, phase this out. So it might even be more than 20, like 25 years, something like that. So they're saying that these municipalities, these cities, whatnot, shouldn't notice or feel any changes for at least another 10 years as this starts being phased out. But everybody's mad at each other, basically. They're mad. The cities, the municipalities, we'll call them, they want, obviously, the tax money coming in, and the distilleries just want to pay less money. So everybody's mad at each other. Have fun, Kentucky. But I mean, I get both sides. I get it. It is strange to be the only state that charges this barrel tax, especially when that state is one that really, really wants as many distilleries to exist there as possible. That's Seems counterproductive. But I understand tax money. Tax money is important. uh, Moving on, I'm going to skip my order here that I was planning because I want to talk about Lagerfest because I'm drinking a lager. This Saturday, this previous Saturday, I ran down to Northern Row. They were holding their second annual Lagerfest. It's a beer festival, but it's not what you think of when you think of a beer festival. When you typically think of a beer festival, you think of a bunch of people hanging out in a convention center or a parking lot or something like that, just standing around drinking beer out of tiny glasses. And Julia says, so who's going to put out the distillery when it catches on fire if the taxes aren't going to the fire department anymore? I guess they have to figure out how to run a fire department without that tax money. They will still get tax money from other things, but just not as much. Maybe they can do fundraisers. It's going back to Lagerfest. It is a different type of beer festival than that stereotypical vision of what a beer festival is. There still is some of that kind of idea. There was, I think, maybe 20 different lagers on tap from probably, I don't know, 10 breweries maybe, somewhere around there, without looking at the list, which is over there somewhere, but I don't know the exact number. But so there were like beers that you can sit and sample, and your ticket came with sample tickets, and it also came with a couple half-pint tickets, so you could, if you found one that you tasted that you really liked, you could then dive into a half-pint of it and kind of sit and enjoy it more. I used both of my half-pint tickets at the same time to get a full pint. That's how my brain works. But it was really, really great to have all of those lagers in one place. It wasn't a lot of stuff that was kind of crazy and off the wall and things that you don't normally see. There were a couple little things that were kind of a little rarer, but it's not about that at all. Like, that's not the point of Lagerfest, which is something that I feel very strongly about having these different types of festivals or different types of events that aren't necessarily about chasing that next thing or that rare thing, or it's this other side of beer that I feel so strongly about. Again, drinkability of a beer means something to me. The act of drinking beer, the act of sitting with somebody and just having a beer is something that I think is extremely important. And that's kind of a big part of what the festival is about. It's about sitting around just drinking lager beer. On top of that, Northern Row loves lager. They are extremely dedicated to it, not just because they like making it, but because of what it's done for Cincinnati, because of the history side of it. So part of the festival, they did tours. The Brewing Heritage Trail did a couple tours of the Jackson Brewery, which, if you guys have never been in the Jackson Brewery, it is awesome. It is kind of one of the few that I've been in that has like stacked lagering tunnels. So there's tunnels on top of tunnels, which is really neat to see, and they're in great shape and they're easy to get in and out of, and just absolute blast. I always love kind of taking one of those tours, and especially when before and after you get to drink lager beer. The fantastic band, Highly Likely, for some of you guys who are podcast listeners for other shows around town, you might recognize that name. They were playing partway through the day, so got to sit and listen to them. I had never got to see them live, so that was fun, and it was pretty fantastic. But this definitely, because of that, it's got me thinking a lot about the throatability of of beer lately, or kind of what beer means, what beer styles mean, what the culture of something like lager, what it means to the city of Cincinnati historically, and kind of where we're at now too, of kind of pushing back into some kind of a more normalcy of beer. It doesn't always have to be about chasing the next big thing. Doesn't always have to be. It's still a big part of beer, but hang on, let me dive into this. It's the amount of people that drank lager. I know Marco was making a joke, is high, but just if you think about, what the city would have looked like if we did not have that large influx of German immigrants when we did, and if there were not the breweries that were there. I mean, at one time, a huge chunk of OTR was taken up by brewing buildings. We were at one point in the night. I don't know how it always ends up this way, but ended up on the roof at Northern Row, and we were just kind of sitting up there having a beer and kind of looking out over OTR. And you can look down because you're kind of sitting. It's a little higher than a lot of the other buildings around it. Looking down at this Rheingeist building, which is a Christian Moorline building. Northern Row was a Christian Moorline building. You can see the Christian Moorline office building. You can see where the stables were. You can see all these things. You can start to look at kind of what this block looked like when the whole thing was taken up by one brewery. It's the city. I don't know what it would have looked like. I'm sure some other industry would have sprung up, but it was built on beer, and in a lot of ways built on lager beer. So it touched me in my heart. It was. I'm trying to think of some kind of way to tie that into a throatability joke, but I won't. Speaking of other lagers, if we want to shift topics again, try to keep things concise and on schedule here. Rheingeist just announced that they were doing this collaboration lager with Patagonia. This is crazy, and I don't know completely everything about this Kernza. Kernza is a like a wheatgrass, and it's extremely sustainable. It roots really deep, so like the roots of the plant just go way down in there, so you don't have to do as much tilling with it. You don't have it like a lot of the nutrients stay in the soil with it. It's just sustainable. And so they're teaming up with Patagonia to make this beer. There's I think like 11 breweries across the country that are doing it, and they're making it with organic hops and just trying to make a beer that kind of shows that there are some other ingredients that can be used to make beer that maybe are better long term for the sustainability of this industry, because supposedly there's some pretty serious climate change happening. That's probably something we should be concerned about. So I like seeing stuff like this. I like seeing innovation in different ways than just trying to put marshmallows in something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I had a great marshmallow beer last week too. It was delicious. Shout out to Wandering Monsters, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But there is other things that you can do with your desire to innovate and create and be different. And this is definitely one of those things. So I've not tried it yet. I really want to. Don't know when I'll get there to try it, but I want to. I probably should have tried to stop there when I was down over the weekend, because I was right there. But Jason says, where is the Jackson Brewery? So it sits kind of right on top of the hill overlooking OTR. If you're at Northern Row and you go down McMicken, it's almost right there. It's like a block away, up on top of the hill, and then the tunnels kind of come out onto McMicken. It is now owned by Cinbev, or the parent company of Cinbev, the Cincinnati Beverage Company. They bought that and a couple other brewery buildings. This one, the Jackson Brewery specifically, they don't really know long-term what they're going to do with it. It's in really rough shape. The actual building upstairs, there was a fire a few years back that did a lot of damage to it. The roof was completely gone. They've since spent a ton of money just kind of stabilizing the building, putting a roof on it, making sure that it is protected for the long term. And then they kind of have some other ideas. I've heard rumblings of like a hotel or something like that they want to do in there, which could be really cool. But yeah, it's right there. It was trivia. This was the building before Urban Artifact was Urban Artifact. They were called Grayscale. That was kind of their working name. And this was the building that they originally were trying to go into, and just could not. They couldn't put as much money as needed into the building to make that happen. But that was where they were originally going to be. Trivia. So yeah, Kern's a lager. As soon as I try it, I'll try to share my thoughts with you guys somehow, because I think it's cool. So that's that. Let's not necessarily about lager. Let's talk about growth. Ohio beer. So there was a press release that came out fairly recently, kind of summing up the numbers from last year. And I know that there has been a lot of discussion over the last, month or so about, are there too many breweries and, whatever. It's growing. Ohio beer is still growing, is the important thing that I kind of walked away from with this article. There was definitely, it took a big hit during COVID. Obviously everybody did. And then kind of last year, things were still kind of coming back a little bit, or I guess not last year, 2021, things were still coming back. 2022, there was growth. It was up 8.9%. We're up to 420 breweries in the state, which includes 44 new ones in 2022. Production volume, we've been kind of sitting around sixth for a long time as far as states, but they're making all of the breweries in Ohio are making 1.29 million barrels of beer, so just a ton of beer coming out of the state. Again, up 18.7%. So just big numbers. And so when I hear everybody talking about the state of beer, I think there's a lot of people looking at it through the wrong lens, and numbers like that kind of showcase that to me, that things are growing. It's just where are they growing, and how are they growing, and what are the places that are increasing how much beer they're making versus not. You have to look at things the right way to kind of get a good picture of what is happening with beer, not just in Ohio, but bigger picture too. But Ohio is in a good spot. In my opinion, even better than Ohio, but not even better than Ohio. One of the best shining beacons of what's happening in beer is happening right here in Cincinnati, which is the next thing that I want to talk about, because we got new breweries. We have a bunch of new breweries that are happening right now, breweries and tap rooms, we'll say. So obviously the logo here is for Wandering Monsters. I did stop out there, didn't get to eat there. I had a pint and then split a couple flights. Ran into Beer Dave out there, so we split a couple flights so that we could sit and chat and kind of talk about, again, the state of beer and kind of what we were drinking and everything. Just it's always fun to shoot the shit with him. But everything was great. The beer was great, but I've not gotten to eat yet. I'm really wanting to. I still don't know what a pork wing is, but I really want to try a pork wing because it sounds delicious. I like pork and I like wings. So somehow you put them together and it's got to be great. But we've got them. They just opened up and are fully open now. Fretboard has their tap room out at Factory 52. And Julia says they're from the Special Flying Pigs of Cincy. It's the only thing I could come up with. The tap room at Factory 52 is open now. They don't brew there, but it's still a tap room, and definitely worth a visit. Right around the corner from Highwire, which has a tap room out there too. Factory 52 is just chugging along, and there's some really cool stuff happening out there. So go there and have a beer. A couple other new things that are definitely worth mentioning. The biggest one to me is this place, Gravel Road, up in Middletown. They took over the old rolling mill brewing company. They evidently have been opening their doors, and I completely missed it. So I had heard about this place coming, and they caught me off guard that they've been just serving beer on the weekends since like late June. So they have not had their grand opening, but it is coming. I think in the fall is what they said, is that they should be up and running completely by the fall. But in the meantime, we'll be kind of doing some test stuff, working on the building, a big thing, trying to get stuff painted and try to get things kind of their personality versus you walk in now and it still looks like Rolling Mill. But they are open. So that's interesting to note for people. And then the news about Gilligan's over in Wyoming. This is a currently operating restaurant space that has been looking to try to do some kind of brewery. They are partnering up, is the best way to put it, with Westside. They're going to put a brewery in there, so there's going to be a, I guess, not a pilot system. It's just going to be another brewery, another brewer that's making Westside beers branded differently. That's kind of my understanding. It's a kind of a different approach to things than we've seen from other places. I do not think that this is in any way owned by Westside. It is just, it's a partnership. It's a way for Westside to just be making more beer. It's very interesting. I don't understand all the ins and outs of the agreement, but it is coming soon, and I don't think that will be very far out. I believe that we could probably see them this year. Marco says, I don't know what that means. Yeah, me either. That's kind of where I was going with this. I don't really understand all the ins and outs. But yeah, I've been digging as best I can to try to understand it. I definitely will be asking a few questions the next time I stop out at Westside, which will probably be very soon, because they also made an announcement this week that they are going to be the first local brewery that releases their Oktoberfest. As far as I know, I don't think anybody else has theirs on. Well, unless you count Northern Row, who has theirs all year round, but their Oktoberfest will come out on Thursday, so we're in it. Oktoberfest season begins. I didn't put this in my notes as a story to cover, but speaking of Oktoberfest, the Oktoberfest Cincinnati announced that they are moving locations. They are shifting back up onto 5th Street instead of down at it wasn't really at the banks, down by the banks, we'll say. Justin says, goodness, we're brewing ours tomorrow. Yeah, you got to find that right sweet spot. I don't mind them coming out, I'll even say the very end of July. I need it. I need it for a very long period of time, so I'm okay with that. But I also want some to be on shelves and on taps as we get into actually fall. I don't want them all to be gone, so you have to have a little bit of both. Julia says, I felt like, with not a lot of info, it might be similar to just another brand from Westside, not really tied to the Westside name, but somehow fall under the Westside umbrella. Could be very wrong, though. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't know. I will have more information about it at some point here. Julia says, I love Oktoberfest and Märtzens. I'm all for it. Marco says brew it twice. I believe that a lot of, especially a place like Westside, I think that they're doing more than one batch of it. I think that the one batch doesn't quite cover how much they sell. That probably goes for a couple of those big guys. I believe Braxton does a couple batches of it for sure. Julia says, is that decoction if you brew it twice? Kind of. Speaking of lagers, going back to the lager discussion, and not that we ever really left it, we kind of have talked about it the whole show. Big Sis is scheduled. It is on the calendar. Brew Day is coming up actually fairly soon. And then with that, after that, we will start talking about the tapping event, which I believe we have a date set for that too. It'll be late September. And I'll obviously have more details about it. I can tell you that this year we are brewing Big Sis at Darkness. Darkness has not brewed it before, but yet they've been involved in every single version of Big Sis. So we wanted to get it there because they've been there the whole way. So it's their turn for sure. I am super excited to do that. I did send out emails. I sent out emails to most places today. I'm realizing as the day goes on, some of the places that I forgot, like I missed sending one out to Wandering Monsters because Jason is not currently on. I have a kind of a group that I have just to make sending emails like that easier, and I didn't put him in because it's too new. So I didn't get him. And there's a couple other people that have kind of the contacts that I would have sent it to have fallen out of my list just because they might have left or whatnot. So there are a few places that if you happen to be listening to this and you're a local brewery and you're like, hey, I didn't get an email about that, I want to be involved, please send me an email. We want you involved not only in the actual brewing of the beer, but in the event too, the tapping event. We want as many as possible. This is a huge collaboration, and we want to keep that going and keep it kind of growing. I don't remember what the actual number is up to now of how many breweries have been involved with Big Sis over the years. I'm looking. Let's see. 17 different breweries have been involved with making this beer. And we definitely want to grow that. Now, if we add into that number all of the breweries that have been involved with like the actual event, the charity stuff, the raffle baskets and stuff, that number gets really, really big. But no, that's just how many breweries have showed up and helped. I say helped very loosely, helped make the beer. Sometimes we just sit and drink, and eat donuts. Heckle. There's a lot of heckling that goes on. It's fun. It's a good time. It's exactly kind of what Mike would have wanted a collaboration beer that had his name and his face on it to be. It's perfect. So again, if you're listening to this, your local brewery, you want to be involved, please let me know. Marco says that Truth Beer Consequences wants to be involved. I will actually reach out to you guys if you want to come and hang out for the brew day, or obviously the tapping event too. You are more than welcome. Julia says I can help with the donut eating and the beer drinking if you need extra people for that. We always need extra people for that. So anyways, that's where we're at this week. That's how things are going. I am slammed the rest of this week. But like I said, I am recording 2 podcasts this week, 2 episodes of the Brewcast, including one with another new brewery that we didn't even talk about that is, I think, legally open, but they are not yet. So we will definitely be talking about them probably next week, probably next Monday, because that's when the show will air. And then the following week after that will be the live podcast that I'm recording this coming weekend. That's right? If my math in my head is correct, it's this coming weekend. Yes, the 15th, I will be recording live at Fibonacci with Final Gravity, which is a beer zine. If you guys are familiar with that, if you hopefully you listened to that episode of Cincy Brewcast, and you know what I'm talking about, because it was a fun show, and we're gonna do it live. Fingers crossed. I'll be probably on the stage doing the podcast, and then we're gonna try to stream it live too, which works fairly well. I say fairly loosely, fairly well when I'm streaming from the basement here in this nice controlled environment. I don't know how it's going to work from the beer garden, but we're going to try. So you have lots of opportunities to listen. You can show up there and just listen to it live. You can listen to the podcast a week later, or more than a week later, because it'll be not that coming Monday, but the Monday after that. Or you can maybe listen on your phone. We'll see. Julia says, I still have a bit of issue 1 to finish reading. I knocked that whole thing out the day that I got it. It was so good. I love it. I love the idea behind it. For anybody that has not bought issue 1, get on there and do it, because it is good. It's what beer writing is supposed to be, and so I like it, and you should too. That's all I got for you. We'll be back. I really have to clean up my studio and get packed for an early job tomorrow morning. Should be fun though. Julia says it's been a hellacious week since it showed up. Believe me, I get that. Very, very well. We will be back. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you like this show or any of the shows or any of the things that I do, know that you can always support by going to thegnarlygnome.com/support. It helps, and it helps kind of keep all of this stuff going. It'll help you make more podcasts, that's for sure. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out. I'll give you guys the sneak peek of next week's episode. Glendale House in Glendale. I always hesitate to tell you ahead of time just in case things don't work out, but that's where we're going to be. So stay tuned.